Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the C.I.C. Lounge. I'm Peter.
I'm Jen.
And today we're going to be doing episode 4 of The Lower Decks.
Season 4. This is Something Borrowed, Something Green.
Which, right off the bat, from the name of the episode, I'm like, somebody's getting married. Who's it going to be?
Well, it's green, so it's probably related to Tendi. Though I would have been surprised if Tendi were the one getting married. What'd you think? Initial thoughts on this episode?
I actually really enjoyed it. It was, there was no major conflict or anything going on. I mean, you did have like the secondary story with, or would it be a tertiary story with the captain talking to some random species?
You're talking about the
primary story is Tendi going to to help her sister,
and one of the B stories is the Rutherford and Boimler conflict, and then you do have that tertiary storyline with the captain dealing with the Chalna.
Sure, name.
I wrote it down. That is a species we have seen in Star Trek before. Obviously, I think when they appeared in The Next Generation, there was no dialogue. It was more just like grunting. So there's that, and then the opening teaser alluded to the through story for this season.
That little egg-shaped spaceship that we saw in the first 2 episodes is back. Dun, dun.
So they've gone after Romulan, they've gone after Klingon, they've gone after Orion.
Yes, and I did like how the captain kind of threw in that little tidbit, like, oh, after your Orion spaceship has gone missing,
one minor Orion ship goes missing, and we want to show a goodwill. What?
A good faith gesture?
I'm thinking at the rate Federation starships go missing, that other alien species starships would go missing at least a comparable rate.
Yeah.
So one wouldn't really be much more than a drop in a bucket. So, but okay. Okay.
Moving along.
I think I did like that opening scene because we got a kind of a glimpse of Orion life.
Mm-hmm.
Through this whole episode we got it, but like in the beginning, it's like we're not pirates. We're pirates adjacent. You know, we provide the supplies for the pirates who do all the pirating things.
Yeah.
It's kind of like I've always wondered, like, well, not every Klingon is a warrior, because then you wouldn't have a really well balanced society.
Yeah.
You know, someone has to take out the trash, right?
Exactly. Who are the scientists? You know, who are the philosophers?
Right.
Is everybody violent and filled with carnage in their heart and soul?
Apparently.
And is every Orion a pirate?
So yeah, I mean, I was kind of sad to see these guys, just get shot up, because they're just like low man on the pecking order totem pole. They're like nothing. And so whoever these egg-shaped spaceship people are, like they're
I don't know.
Indiscriminate, whether they're going after Klingon warriors or minor Orion pirates.
I theorize that it is future tech.
Future tech?
Yes.
Okay.
I have a theory that it's future tech.
It could be.
Don't know who, don't know from what era, but that's how I feel.
So one of the things that I am really enjoying this season is T'Lyn, the Vulcan.
Yes. I have enjoyed that they have brought her in.
There's a dry wit in her character, because obviously she's Vulcan, that I really relate to. Which is no surprise to you since you know me.
Yeah. Well, when they're in the sex dungeon and Mariner's like, well, he is pretty easy on the eyes. And she's like, yes, he is aesthetically pleasing. In a very dry monotone voice.
Right.
I was like,
that is something I would say, actually. That is something. And I think she called it a hump den.
Yeah, the hump den.
The hump den.
Yes.
Oh,
and apparently in New Seattle has some hump dens.
Well, I don't know if there's any in Old Seattle, which is 20 miles from here, but
maybe.
Apparently New Seattle's where we need to be.
Right? That's where we're going to get some hump dens. Jesus.
So I absolutely loved Mariner in this episode.
Oh, she gets
I
hit,
love her in
what,
every episode.
three times
At
in the
least
same spot?
3 times with a blade, and she's like, what the hell, you know?
Do you see this? Yeah, come on.
But it's Tendy's episode, like it's her storyline, you know, and you just see Mariner just like cheering her on, and you know, when the Vulcan's like, what is a prime, and she's like, I don't know, but it sounds really cool, you know, like can't wait to hear more, you know. That's like, I want a friend like that,
right?
Like I want someone who's that invested, who's that enthusiastic, and who just is not afraid to say it like it is, like Mariner is, you know.
Yeah.
I would like to be friends with Beckett Mariner.
I would too.
Yeah, I think that would just be a hoot. I wouldn't actually mind being friends with Tawny Newsome either. Like something tells me there's a lot of her in Mariner.
I would believe so. I've never done any voiceover work. I've worked with you on doing ADR stuff, but I've never done any voiceover stuff. But I would imagine that with a lot of voiceover actors, you're giving a little bit of yourself to the characters.
I think in acting that's what it is. You take some of the actor and you take some of the character and you put it together, and that's what gives you a performance. So yeah, definitely wouldn't mind hanging out with.
She does seem like she would
Beckett
be
or Tawny. You know,
if
the opportunity arises. She has not been at Emerald City Comic Con, which is my local convention yet. Yet, hopefully soon.
No, overall, I really enjoyed this episode. I thought it was a lot of fun. It didn't have a whole lot to like dive deep into, but it was enjoyable because we got to see a lot of Tendi. You know, we haven't really gone in depth with her. We had a Rutherford episode where we got to see a little bit of his past and why and how he has his implants. Obviously, the main 2 characters are Boimler and Mariner, so we've gotten to see a lot of them.
Right. And Mariner actually calls it when the captain walks in and says, "You've been granted shore leave, like effective immediately, and to go to this wedding." And you know, Mariner's like, "You have like a sister and parents and whatever."
This
it's
is
like,
more backstory than I've ever heard.
I love how Lower Decks can just do that. They can.
It's like they break the fourth wall constantly.
Exactly. They can hang a lantern on something like that. You know, just, hey, we haven't actually talked about 10D in the 4 seasons yet so far. So here, we're going to give her an episode. So what did you think about the Rutherford Boimler bromance storyline?
Rutherford? It's super corny, but adorable all at the same time. Like, these 2 characters are just dorks.
Yeah.
Like absolute dorks. And I love them both because I'm a dork in my heart and I'm a nerd, and I just love to see these 2 dingbats getting along. I mean, obviously there was going to be some, tension in this episode because you can't have a fun episode without tension and then resolve. And we got that. And I thought it was a lot of fun. But like the way that they go about it is so unorthodox. It's like, my buddy and I, when we moved in together, and we got into plenty of fights, yelling and screaming at each other, borderline actual physical fights. And these 2, what do? They go to the holodeck dressed as the same character. And I'll tell you, sir, that they talk it out like Southern gentlemen.
Like Mark Twain. Samuel Clemens.
I was just like, what? This seems right. This seems appropriate.
Which, of course, is a nod to when Mark Twain, Samuel Clemens, was featured in The Next Generation. Because very, very few elements in Lower Decks are original to Lower Decks, because it's a constant nod to everything in Star Trek. So I absolutely love that. I think, like, I wrote it down, like, they're fighting over the mister to spray on the bonsai tree and
water the bonsai.
And Boimler's like, I said no, Mr. Rutherford. Like, so formal,
Mr. Rutherford,
in their argument. Like, this is like they weren't even dressed as Clemens yet. They were just in their uniforms. Just like, you call your roommate Mr. Rutherford? Okay, that's so Boimler.
And then to use that, because like obviously they're excited, they just fixed their friendship, and now they're going to use this for a diplomatic situation with the captain. And the fact that she actually goes through with it is just, again, typical Lower Decks shenanigans.
Right.
Like you're not going to get that with Deep Space Nine or Next Gen or
But you will get that with a California class Starship Commander.
With the California class, absolutely.
Yes. Because she'll try anything.
And it kind of worked, but not really.
Not the way Rutherford and Poimler would have liked. They lost their
Rutherford. Okay.
They lost their
bonsai.
Their bonsai tree.
What did they call their tree? Boney or something?
Yeah, I think it was called like Boney.
It's just so ridiculous.
And yeah,
but
I think it could have gone more ridiculous.
Oh.
I was watching this episode and I'm like, I wonder how much they had to scale back.
I would love to have been in the room when they were coming up with ideas for this episode. Like when they're sitting there blocking out the episode, like what kind of shenanigans do you think that the writers and
was the
artists
hump
were doing?
den the first term they came up with?
Right.
You know, and I'm thinking how much more vulgar was Mariner in her dialogue going through before they had to like, nope, that's too far. Where's the line?
We need some outtakes from the booths. You know, I want to hear some of the extra stuff that they do.
I'm assuming they're allowed to ad lib.
I would hope so.
I as a director, I would want my actors like, you know, play it straight, play it as written, and now have some fun.
Really, Jen.
Now have some fun.
Really, Jen.
Yes. Yes, you guys tend to take it a little too far. I have to rein you back in because you end up stomping on each other's lines. It's like, that's great. You're talking nonsense. You're screaming nonsense. The mic is being overpowered, and we can't hear either of you. So,
for those of you at home, Jen directed a short 48-hour film that we did years and years and years ago, and I tend to ad-lib a lot, and she stopped and said, I like it, but stick to the script.
Peter needs clear and concise direction. And he responds well to clear and concise direction.
Yeah, maybe.
You know, some actors need an ego stroking or whatever, and I don't have the patience for it.
No, you never have.
It's like, I can just tell him, act better. Like, that was terrible. Let's do it again. You know, and he knows it's not really personal. At least
not really.
Not really. I mean, it is his performance, and he poured his heart and soul into it. Maybe if he did pour his heart and soul into it, I don't know.
That was another great direction that you gave me. Was I like what you're doing, but do it better.
Can
you do it better?
Yeah, do it better. And of course, I say this having an understanding of not giving line readings and proper directing of actors. I do understand all of that, but when you have a working relationship for as long as we have, there's a shorthand.
Yeah. I digress.
We digress. No, I think you're right. Like there wasn't a whole lot to deep dive into this episode, and I don't think Lower Decks really needs to do that in every episode. I think if it tried to do that, it would kind of take away from
the fun,
the brevity and the lightheartedness that Lower Decks is supposed to be. And you know, as an animated series, you know, I think it's doing very well. I think that I have met Star Trek fans who just don't get it, and I just assume they have no sense of humor.
I would imagine that they don't have much of a sense of humor,
and I get that for some people Star Trek is kind of sacred, so they don't want to take it in jest. They don't want jokes made about it. But
come on.
But I'm not really into animated shows in general, but I absolutely love Lower Decks because it has the freedom to do things in Star Trek that even Star Trek otherwise doesn't have the freedom to do.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I mean, I love the show for a lot of the same reasons that you do. And you're right. It's like Star Trek is very scientific. They're exploring. They're sophisticated technology. So there's a lot of gobbledygook that it just goes right over my head. So watching Lower Decks is like a little reprieve from all that blah blah blah
technobabble.
Yeah,
that's what they call it.
It's just a fun little thing, and I do enjoy when they get a little more serious because it breaks up the monotony of the jokes. But this was a fun, lighthearted episode that kind of we do have that serious moment at the very beginning of the episode, but then the rest of the episode is fun and antics and Mariner getting stabbed 3 times in the same spot on her shoulder. Rutherford dressing up as both of them dressing up as Mark Twain and getting into arguments. And it was just fun, silly shenanigans, and I adore that.
And it's what we've come to expect from Lower Decks. And I imagine it's what we can continue to expect.
Yeah.
And I look forward to what the rest of the season has to offer.
Me too. Well, with that, thank you all so much for joining us again for another episode of the CIC Lounge. My name is Peter.
I am Jen.
And we'll see you next time.